Hey guys, so just a short little video on how I stay current or effective in the field. So some really good questions. So the first one, where do you find information when working with new injuries or sports? So this one is a good one. It can get really difficult or confusing with so much information online nowadays. It's hard to tell what's real, what's false. A lot of it is just pure marketing. But I usually like to start like everyone else. I'll just Google it, see what comes up. From there, I like to see if I can find any sort of reputable names, maybe someone that's given a personal testimony or anything like that. So right away, if I can see someone that I respect has good things to say about it, then that usually kind of piques my interest a little bit more. On the other hand, if I start to see some really big marketing ploys, things like that, then that kind of tips me off in the other direction. So that's usually the first thing. From there, if it is something that can be proven or disproven through research, I'll go and look at the literature and see if there's anything that I can find, see if there's anything that's been done on it that can back up or refute any of the claims that they're making. Once I've spent some time kind of looking into it on my own, if I know anyone in my close circle that's actually had any experience with it, I'll reach out to them, see if they've had any experience with it or if they know someone that's done some work with it, just to get kind of like a personal take on it. And then finally, if everything is kind of checked out up to that point, I'll try the intervention or whatever it is on myself if possible, and see what happens, right? So I'm never going to really go and just do something with any of my athletes without like personally vetting it first, right? I'm not going to ask them to do something that I can't do or that I haven't done yet. So I got to make sure that I've actually done whatever it is I'm going to ask them to do if it's something new. And again, if I find that I've got good results personally with it, if it's an exercise, if it's a technique, if it's whatever, and it's backed through research or other professionals have had good things to say about it, then it's something I'll try to implement, a little by little, nothing too crazy right away, but just kind of getting into it. So second question here, how do you keep on top of ongoing changes in research? So again, this can be overwhelming if you're just starting out and you're trying to read as much as you can. But one of the things that I kind of go back on is maintaining certifications will require you to continually take Con Ed or continuing education material. So this often will incorporate some sort of research, again, kind of depending on what your Con Ed is. But that's usually the easiest way because you have to be doing that on a year-to-year basis just to maintain those certifications. Another way I like to do is find a journal that you like, right? So for me, it's a Journal of Strength and Conditioning, and subscribe to the alerts and send that they send every time when a new issue comes out, right? So for most of these ones, you can just get an auto notification every time a new journal comes out. And when I get the alert, I'll just scroll through the latest articles and pick out a few that I like that I think will be interesting, and I'll just set those aside to read at a later date, right? So that's pretty much the easiest way. Other than that, I'll have players ask me all the time about certain things that they come across on the internet or they've heard about from other players, and sometimes I haven't heard of it. So again, that's where I kind of go on my journey to find out what sort of information or if any sort of science backs up any of the things that they're talking about. So that's usually how I kind of stay on top of the ongoing changes. So how did you learn to work in a sport you aren't familiar with? So this is me to a T. When I started in my current job with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I had never played a down football. I'd never worked really in the sport. So I had to start from absolute ground zero. I was asking a million questions pretty much every day and letting players that I knew nothing. So right away, I think being authentic right off the bat and telling players I come from a hockey background, football is new to me, teach me, I think that kind of showed them that I was being who I actually am and I wasn't pretending like I knew about the game, right? These are pro athletes. They're at the top of their game. They know what they're talking about, and I let them teach me rather than me pretending like I know how to play football, or all the ins and outs and the terms and everything that comes along with it. So basically, just ask as many questions as you can, get around the sport as much as you can, watch the sport as much as you can. If you can play it, football's one of those sports that's kind of hard to play on your own, but if you're getting into a sport that you can play by yourself, go and play by yourself, right? So if you've never played hockey before and you want to train hockey players, you got to go and try and play hockey on your own, right? I had a hard time throwing a football when I started. At this point now, I've actually learned from quarterbacks some proper technique on throwing a football. So little things like that go a long way, and they see that you're learning and trying to get better. So I think that kind of builds some rapport at the same time. So fourth question, who are some of your mentors and how often post-graduation do you keep in touch? So starting off, Sean Preston was my first mentor coming out of school. He was the strength and conditioning director at U of M. So he had a similar background, or he has a similar background as me. So he came from athletic training in the States and then moved into more of a strength and conditioning role. And that's kind of where I started as well. And really when I started off, he was someone that I emulated to be like, because he'd been around quite a bit. He had worked a ton of different spots. He had already been in the business for, I think, 10 years at that point. So he was really someone that I could, look up to and try and aspire to be like one day. And we usually catch up, once or twice a year, kind of depending on our schedules, just to talk shop and whatnot and see how each other's doing. And then as well, just some of my friends I went to school with, I would consider mentors, because they were going through the same sort of learning curve as me coming out of school, or even slightly ahead. So if, they had learned something, a year ago or 6 months ago, and I just was picking up on it, I could basically jumpstart that learning curve, and get a little more head start on that sort of thing. So kind of looking around all the time to seeing where you can find those mentors basically is going to definitely help you kind of jump ahead and sort in that sort of thing. Was there something you learned in school that didn't actually work the way you anticipated when starting in your position? Yeah, this one for sure. So the way we learned about injuries in school is hardly the way I look at injuries now after 8 years in the field. I kind of understand why it was taught the way it was taught. So basically we were taught that almost all athletic injuries are very straightforward. And if you go through your assessment and your special tests and things of that nature, that you'll get to a solid conclusion and you'll have a treatment plan, ready to go, and everything will be great. In the real world, that's almost never how it actually works. It's a lot of trial and error. And I understand, again, why they teach this, but it would have been nice to be able to hear from someone early on that, this is the way the textbook describes it, but in the real world, you're going to get a whole lot more complexity. There's a whole lot more things involved than just a straightforward textbook answer. And you have to think kind of outside the box on certain injuries. Again, if it's just a straightforward ankle roll, something like that, where you actually watch the injury occur, very different. But if you have someone that's been fighting with a tendonitis, shoulder pain, whatever, something that's been bothering them for quite a while, the classical textbook rehab plans are usually, in my experience, going to leave you wanting a little bit more. So that's where, again, staying on top of current research, talking to other people, seeing what kind of results they got from, maybe different protocols, or just experimenting with things on your own. That's kind of what's helped me the most. And just when you find something that gives you good results, building on that. So at the end of the day, what kind of results are you getting with whatever protocols you're using is kind of the most important thing. So yeah, hopefully that helps anyone that's starting out in the field or someone that's looking to level up their game. All right, go Bombers.